Marie Kilmartin is 36 years of age. When last seen, she was wearing a white tweed double-breasted coat with big lapels and a black scarf with red flowers and specks of grey. Marie moved to Portlaoise from County Galway in 1981 and lived here at number 12 Beladd, a house she bought shortly after she came to live in the town. On the afternoon she went missing, Thursday the 16th of December, Marie walked from her home to the daycare centre on the New Road, where she attended a Christmas party for senior citizens. Marie worked throughout the year in the day centre as a part-time voluntary assistant.
We were invited that day down to the day centre for our Christmas dinner, and she was there. So it was arranged beforehand that I would bring her home because she was nervous of coming up the road on her own. So Francis and I brought her up here to her house, and she wanted in for tea or coffee. And we were both going out that night, and we felt we hadn't time, so we said some other time. So we waited until she went into the back of the house. And that's the last we saw of her. Now I thought she was to me she was Marie. She hadn't changed, and we talked about Christmas and what she was going to do, and her parents were coming over on the following Wednesday night, and they were going out for a meal to the Collection. And to me, she was, as she always was. I felt in good form. Yeah.
At 6 o'clock, Patricia Doyle, who shares the house with Marie, returned home from work.
She said to me that morning that she was going to the daycare centre party. It was her last day at work. And she said, "Do you mind if I stay late with Francis Bleach and Francis Conroy, the two Francis, she always called them." And then when I came in that evening, I was saying, I bet you now, it was Christmas time, you see, and I was thinking she's going out with the women now to some kind of a party or something. But as the night went on, I was awake all night, I was up all night, just looking out the window to see where she coming. No sign. So I was very annoyed, because Marie wasn't like that. Marie was very dependable, and she had a routine, and she stuck to her routine. It was just straight down the line with her. Everything was done, as it should be done with her. I still had to ring Francis Bleach, and I had to, speak to those people. So I went into work, just got into my clothes and went into work, and I left it a while, and then I rang them. But then there was nothing. Nobody knew where she was. Nobody had seen her. There was nothing. And the next thing then, we just reported it to the Gardaí, and the Gardaí came up here, and they said, she went away, and I just said, it was something took her out of the house. So I was delighted then when they said the phone call was made to the house, because I knew then that Marie hadn't gone out on impulse, you know what I mean? And I was delighted then. I said to myself, somebody rang her, someone she knew and trusted rang her, because she wouldn't go out in the dark on her own. So I knew it was somebody she knew and trusted.
Truth always screams to be heard.
The prison and the psychiatric hospital were very much interwoven in the community. They were two of the bigger employers in the town.
But it still had a very strong element of connectivity. People knew each other. They were in the GA, they played in the rugby club, they were in the different voluntary organisations in the town. So it wasn't an impersonal place. It is a place that you would expect to be seen and known, rather than to pass through anonymously.
Baile réasúnta ciúin, réasúnta beag, agus cardúil a bhí ann.
Tá á ospidéal neve Fintan site I Laois an baile I Portlaoise. Bhí Marie Kilmartin ann in 1980. Bhí fáibanna ag Marie le meabhair chláinte thar na blianta, ach bhí ag éirí go maith leithí, bhí si a cónaí go neamhspleách, bhí an saoil go maithe cí, bhí saoil sóisialta cí, bhí a lán cárda cí a freisin, agus bheith daoine ag fear amach de freisin.
Marie Kilmartin is my birth mother. I didn't know that Marie was my mother when I was growing up. And it was only when I was 20 I learned that Marie was my mother. A few times in my childhood, Marie came to the house and she seemed like she was great fun.
Ba as béláhan na slúide, ach a 98 daimsigh sí gráisi ag iompar páiste, agus dathraigh gacrod do Marie Kilmartin an sin.
And ní raibh cearta mná cosúil le cearta mná sa lá táin neamh. Bhí Graham cúilte leidir ag aglas na hÉireann ar hoci na hÉireann ag an ná. So ní raibh a saoil éasca ag Marie.
Bhí dearc ar le a bhain le rá na man san 1980 gus 1990 an Éireann. Bhí an chuacht a bhí ag an aglas le linn an ihuaís fós i réim. Bhí rólaní thar a bheith sanachanta ag fér agus marrá. Bhí na marrá is just a toilach a plé le páistí agus le oberthailí. Bhí an cultúr agus an meán sin fós i réim sa phobal go chóir marrá a bhí foibbí meabharthananta nó a bhí páiste acu leis muid an pósa go chóir í sin a smachtú agus a choristeach na institiúlaí agus iad a bhrúar leactíh ónas nach feicfirlíd sa mórphobal. Rinne institiúdú ar marrá a dul siar sa bheithúís is just na Magdalen Laundries agus na Modern Baby Homes agus mar sin de. Ní leon deilteach ar sampla de an smacht a bhí ann i dtír chomádach ag an am a bhí a gceist nóair a choirú Marie is just an ospéil psychiatric.
Carraigh a chlán leithí bhoga go dtí Portlaoise é 98. Bhí sí in san ospidéal an sin ospidéal né Fintan I Lár an Maile.
After I was born, Marie held me and stayed with me for a day or two, and then she was sent back to St. Fintan's.
Caithfidh go raibh sé sin an crua ar Marie Kilmartin.
She stayed there until the following November with Patricia Doyle. Marie would have been in her 30s in this photograph. This is Marie and her friend, the psychiatric nurse Patricia Doyle, who she met in St. Fintan's Psychiatric Hospital and who was allowed to live with Marie. And then she moved into a flat on the Dublin Road and stayed there until November 1981, where she co-signed for a house with her brother.
I gceantar ar imil Portlaoise dar ban Beladd, but bhean an sosialta í.
Everybody in the town knew Marie. We knew that she had been a patient at the psychiatric hospital and that she was well enough to live in the community. And even though everybody knew that Marie was vulnerable, she was always very happy and very pleasant sort of a person. It was just how Marie was. Like, she'd be passing the door, and if you caught her eye, she'd come in and she'd stay in the shop for 10 minutes, maybe chatting to you.
Marie did guitar lessons for the last few months of her life, and she played badminton. She also did a flower arranging course with one of her friends, and she liked to do the bingo.
Ban Junigesh, ban Kinalta, ban Nervishak.
Most of her routine during the week was to go into the care centre, and she spent a lot of her time there. So she was well known around the town. She could walk from where she lived in Beladd right back down to the care centre where she spent her time. And she had a particular facility that she didn't particularly like being out at night, and she liked to be with people that she knew.
Bhí sí ag obair post Jónacha in onad do Shandini in san láthair áitiúil le Portlaoise.
Cha Marie is saoil go ciún ar feadh na mblianta a gceantar Portlaoise, gan gur isteach ná amach a réanda na thart timpeall aire. Chónaigh sí le Patricia Doyle. an bhanachtar híciatracha casagarthe in ospidéal na Fintan ar a mile. Sa teach a bhí ag Marie in Beladd a Portlaoise. Ach an 1993 dathraigh gachrad.
Mary was seen on the 16th of December 1993. She went to the party in the care centre that was part of the end of season leading up to Christmas.
Bhí sí lena cóide ann. Bhí sí is óca I anja humor ar fad. Bhí sí tar éis an mála a feicáil. Bhí sí agsúla dul bháile an clowna eicáil. Bhí na brontanas ar fad ceannaithe aici. Bhí sí réig na dul bháile ag ann cúpla lá eile.
And she was there with her friends for that party that afternoon. And sometime around 4 o'clock, she left and went back to Beladd.
Thug Bert ban gléach Marie an dá Francis ar an Bert fan seo agus thug siad san siab bháiliide, dúirt siad sláán leithí. I raibh aon rud á spáileach bhí gacrad cearcalóir agus bhí si ag fáil réig ag olafú don nullag agus le fille ar béláhanna slua agus ar a clown. Bhín an uairdearnach a chonig aondaine Marie Kilmartin.
Ar an séú ládéal de bhí an nullag 1993, bhí Marie Kilmartin bans na tríchadaí as bélána slóa chun na gaiileh ach a bhí mar achtála Portlaoise le fada, treis a bheith cóisiir nullag san anad lé de handíine áit méid sí gobar go dónach. Dag Bert dá có lecathaí ag doras sa tí féin le titim na híthe I lár an híomhrig. Sin an uairhearnach a chonachas Marie Kilmartin ina baa.
Nuair a dil Pat Doyle ar an teach dúirt si nach raibh aon rud as spáileach. Bhí an immersion ar siúl, bhí an alarm ar siúl. Fuair Pat níos bórtha an oíche sin, mar bhí sé as an gnách nach raibh Marie tar éis fis a chur ar an teach, ní raibh si tar éis fille a bháile an oíche sin, so ceap si go raibh rud éigin béidir tar éis tarlú, bhí si an bórtha.
And it was not until sometime the following day that she was reported missing to the guards. That then started a chain of events that would be best described as a missing person inquiry.
I know at the time it was a big shock around Portlaoise that Marie went missing. Nobody could understand it.
Cuireann sé go mór isteach ar an bubble, bhí a lán daoine bórtha.
Bhíos ag na Gardaí go raibh cúis bórt an seo, bhíidir bórtha faoi Marie Kilmartin, de bhór go raibh sé as an gnách de bheithir irig nach raibh freagraí ag aondaine cá raibh si, nuair bhís ag a clown cá raibh si ach irid.
The first I heard about Marie Kilmartin going missing was when my adoptive mother came into the house where I lived in Galway and said that Marie Kilmartin had gone missing. Her brother had also come into the house and he was giving out leaflets.
Great cooperation was got from the media in the town and surrounding areas. Inquiries were also made back in Ballinasloe, where Marie had come from initially, and the local guards were contacted there to look on the background.
Tháinig ledanna chun cín, agus an céad ceann ná gur bhuail go háin Marie Kilmartin ar háartar leathair tar éis a chathair ar an séú ládéag de míonólag.
The assumption is that Marie took the call. As a result of that, she left the house and that's the last time that she was back in Beladd.
Ní lisa go in cár cuaig si. Tá cúpla rud ar ólas a gin, tá is a gin go raibh an éibhir talún a bhí ché, ní raibh an éibhir sin ag mór an daoine, mar ní raibh sin san leabhar fón ag an am. Caithfidh go raibh an aithne ag Marie Kilmartin orthú, mar d'imigh sí asantach go tobann an sin, agus ní lis a gin cáthait chuig sí.
Two areas that we were unaware of at the start was the two witnesses who said that they saw her at different times on the 17th of December in different locations in Portlaoise.
Ban amháin tháinig sí chun cín, agus dúirt sí gur chonig sí Marie Kilmartin, agus cheap sí gur Marie a bhí ann dúirt sí dí a gcuit leithí, bhí sí an ciún ag an am, bhí sí a Portlaoise in sa mór sláinte áitiúil, ach támán an bheanach san áit tar éis a dúirt sí dí a gcuit le Marie ag an am. San sin 2 uair tar éis sin ar an lá chéine dé híine an 17 de mínolog bhí sí a Portlaoise eile in aice leis an olwarga Crazy Prices agus chonig ban eile í agus leabhar an ban seo le Marie Kilmartin. Dúirt sí go raibh Marie nervíiseach, go raibh sí trína chéile fiú agus go raibh sí ag iarraí go mbeadh an ban seo in ann dul in éonach leithí.
So that led to further publicity.
Bhí tuairiscear an telefís ar crime call ag an am, bhí Marion Finucane ar an telefís ag impi ar daoine teacht chun cín dá rud ag raibh aon ólas acu faoi céir de hála dé.
Marie Kilmartin is 36 years of age. When last seen, she was wearing a white tweed double-breasted coat with big lapels and a black scarf with red flowers and specks of grey. Posters have been put all round the area. Appeals have been read in all the local churches, and the Gardaí have done a full-scale missing persons investigation. But so far, they've nothing that can indicate what happened to Marie Kilmartin. Tonight, we're appealing to anybody who's any information whatsoever to come forward and give it to the Gardaí investigating the case.
Tháinig duine chun cín, ban chun a rá gur chonig siise fear ag chur goléach ar duine éigean in san bosca telefón áitiúil thart ar an am a fór Marie an gléach sin.
Nothing really evidential came out of the alleged sighting of people leaving the phone box, the phone box from which the call was made.
The phone box on the Dublin Road coming out of Portlaoise it's been in a quite prominent place because the Dublin Road in Portlaoise, all the traffic going from Dublin to Cork and to Limerick and to Tralee and Galway all came down that road and then dispersed at the crossroads at the top of the town. And that phone box is just before the prison. And, it is strange and baffling that more people haven't come forward to say that they saw somebody using that phone box or coming out of it.
We need to remember this is in the middle of winter, it's dark, lighting is extremely poor, and visual identification, even of somebody you knew in those circumstances, would be extremely difficult. But nothing evidential flowed from that.
Bhí agalah le na daoine a raibh tar éis leabhart le Marie ar 17 de mínolog. Ban amháin dúirt sí gur chonig sí Marie Kilmartin.
Well, I was coming out of the health centre on Friday, the 17th, and as I got into my car and started reversing it, I saw Marie standing over in the corner of the car park.
Agus an sin 2 uair tar éis sin, chonig ban eile í, agus leabhar an ban seo le Marie Kilmartin.
And I had already gone out of the shopping centre, forgotten to get something, and I came back in. I heard my name being called. I looked around, and it was Marie. And I went over to her, and she was very shaky and everything, and she was all muffled up.
And nothing happened as a result of that. It led to a positive clue.
The people in the town, when somebody goes missing, and particularly someone like Marie, who was an individual that everybody knew, that everybody had great time for, a sense of bewilderment as to why this would happen.
Bhí imnig a landíní, níor hig a landíní cad a bhí ar siúl, agus cuir sé isteach go mór ar an bubble. Bhí gach den ag leabhart faoi. Cén fá a raibh sí imethe, chunas a bhí sé imethe, an raibh sí beo, no, an raibh sí marv.
You just didn't know, but obviously people were thinking, well, something bad has happened, because it's not like Marie. Marie was always around the town. Why this happened or not, it's the not knowing.
We didn't have a body. We had no access to forensic information, anything that would help us further, but it was a very ongoing inquiry, and that process carried on until much later.
Tá Jackart í buint le cais mar sin a chur an tásaigh. A gais cais nachhfuil carpa bí ar feiran, tá Jackart í fuile í buint le sin, mar man bhfuil carpa agad níl go dé chuú sin buas, so níl álas a bí agad ó hiú forensics dán ar a bí mar sin a bheith habat ar bháile le cais a chur le chéile. Agus go minic bheith ha breth ar gainí hart an tásaigh sreid gur iad sin a runne dúnmharú, beidir daine féine se hort go háil an dúnmharú gus go Jackart cais a hort na dhé sin, a gana car tá Jackart í fuile í buint le sin.
Ar an 10 lád mí meitheamh 1994, bhí fearr ifigach presún amach ag siúl in San Portach. Bhí sé ag siúl in Counter dar Banham Pims Lane.
It's located quite close to Portlaoise, it's some distance from the roadway, so you would have to travel over some open ground. Now it is typical bog area, typical for the Midlands.
Ceapan fearr agus é ag siúl leis an iní nó gur chonig sé rud éigean. Béidir cos, ban, nó béidir búta sí, ní raibh sé cinnte. Bhí sé an bortha faoi céir de chonig sé, dil sé ar bhaile, dúirt sé an scéal seo lena ban céile. Dil sé ar an fuirtamh chuna deimhnú gur carpa bhí ann agus an sin tar éis sin chuir sé fis ar na Gardaí.
And I got a phone call to say that there'd been a discovery of a body, and that to all intents and purposes there was a strong possibility it would be, it looked like the body of Marie Kilmartin.
It's almost certain now that the body found in this remote bog off the Portarlington to Mount Mellick Road is that of 36-year-old Marie Kilmartin. She disappeared on December 16th last after receiving a phone call at her Portlaoise home at about 4:20.
The location was cordoned off, and indeed it was a very difficult and distressing situation. It looked like from an examination of the scene that when the body had been deposited there, that the water mark in the drain would have been at the top of the bank.
An saoirigh sin bhí sé antirm. In San Gíomhraigh an bhliain rihrain ar a chuig Marie Kilmartin ar irig bhí an isce in San Fertach.
The body was almost completely decomposed.
Bhí buidéal gás ag haran an corp, bhí pram páiste agus bhí airí agsúla ann. Bhí leach mór ar corp Marie Kilmartin agus bhí sé sin tar éis an corpa chuineáil síos in San Fertach ach de bhór go raibh an aimseir tuairim in San Saoirigh bhí an corp tar éis teacht chun cín.
What the murderer or the murderers didn't know was that beneath the surface there was a bush, or like a whin bush or a gorse bush, and when the body was deposited in, it lodged on that bush, which in other words prevented it from receding down to the depths of the drain.
The day after Marie's body was found, it came on Morning Ireland that a body had been found between Portarlington and Mount Mellick, and immediately my adopted mother said that that's Marie.
Tháinig an Fatholí Stát John Harbison ar an siomh. Bhíos ag gcuin gur corp ban a bhí ann, agus chaláin sé píosa beag de chola Marie Kilmartin. Bhí sé ag éirí a ahant an raibh pátrún faoi leth ann agus bhí idir éirí a cinú gur Marie Kilmartin a bhí ann.
Well, we knew what Marie Kilmartin had been wearing on the evening that she had gone missing, and it was evident, although difficult to see, that this remains had the same clothing. The boots that I mentioned earlier on were a clear indication of that it was also Marie.
Bhí seódra arthaí freisin. Agus bhíos ag Pat Doyle céin éadaí a bhí á chathmh ar a cara an ihe chuig siar éirigh, so bhí siise an ann a rá leis na Gardaí gur Marie a bheith ann.
The next part of that, from a forensic point of view, is to get and ask Dr. Harbison to examine the body. Can they determine the cause of death?
Fóradar amach gur Marie Kilmartin a bhí ann go cinnte de bhór an tafad fiaclór nó dental records. Bhí isacó is tócha ó Pat Doyle gur Marie a bhí ann ach bhí ar an patólaí stát an ólas sin a cinntiú.
I suppose at the time that Marie's body was found, people were in quite a bit of shock because it had been a good number of months since she disappeared, and people were beginning to wonder what had actually happened to Marie. And I suppose then when a body is found and it's found just dumped in a drain, I think the callousness of that alone shocked an awful lot of people.
Níor hiag daoine conas a bhfuil an bás seo tiltte lean ban seo. Níor hiag siad conas a tharla nó cén fá a tharla an tabháisteach seo.
Bhí a lán daoine ag sucrad Marie i béalachan na slua, tháinig an cóphobal le chéile, bhí an áit pacáilte.
I was told that there were 23 priests and a bishop at my mother's funeral. It just shows how religious the family were, and there were hundreds of people who came to visit and to give their respects. I did find it very strange that on the day of the funeral that Patricia, who was Marie's best friend, is saying that she is sorry for me because she was her best friend and I was only a distant cousin. I remember Marie's brother asking me, did I want to say a prayer, which was very kind of him. Also, I remember Patricia Doyle, as the coffin was going out of the church in Ballinasloe, she said, "Marie, don't go." I mourned Marie even though I didn't know she was my mother back when I was 14 at Marie's funeral, because my soul knew, and I just cried and kept on crying.
Well, you see, the key thing in finding a body is that you've got a crime scene location. The downside in this, it was a full 6 months since the body was deposited there. So your big problem then is the lack of forensic evidence that can be used to trace somebody to the location.
Baléir ón imscrúdú a rinne John Harbison gur déanú tachtú ar Marie.
Baléir go raibh sí dúnmhairthe. Agus an am sin bhí feistre an dúnmhairthe ar bunaigh na Gardaí.
Agus an taobhí freigrach fiadar tréis iarachtaí a dhéanamh an corpa chinál síos san Portach.
You need to have hard facts to work on. So in essence, in this case, we were like working the puzzle from the back to the front.
Duine ar dhearú bé acmhainn ar fáil na Gardaí leis a duine na amsú, a má teasa go bhfuil duine dúnmhairthe, bí níos mó acmhainn ar fáil le feistre an Harbón le fáil má cé gúnmhairín duine seo.
Focus where I was directly involved with Superintendent Pat Walsh was to see, to go to the person of interest, see had we people that we needed to arrest.
Gaun na Gardaí Bert fear amháin ins na fihidí, fear eile bhí ins na dahadaí, ceistigh siad na fuir seo. Ach scoilú séir iad agus níor cúisiú iad riamh.
Hinkla daine bh góig na Gardaí agus ceisna choráú agus ní hanan sin le raga mé na daine sin na fí cúisií. Ag déún le na bh sneálas a lig bailthe sé gotí ag siúr na chuisiú poblí an ceniúid le genú ce go leor féine se an iad na daine sin ná bhil, ní sin ceniúid tá le genúid na Gardaí.
Yeah, the sightings the following day were in the middle of the day, I think separated by 2 or 3 hours. In one case, they were face-to-face in a shopping centre and had a conversation, and in the other one, it was an exchange of greeting through a car window, just simply calling out each other's name. But they both had the common characteristic, which was that Mary appears to be upset. Now, on the face of it, we have to accept that those sightings were valid. Key bit of evidence was the phone call made from that phone box beside Portlaoise prison back to the house that evening.
An dún mar fór a bhí a gceist an sin, níl mín cinnte ach an duine a rinne an gléach sin, níor tháinig siad chun cín riamh. Fear a raibh ann dar le fianna go raibh sé sna trocadaí, go raibh sé háartar 5 tro agus 8 orlach in Airde, ach níl éon ólas eile a gcuin faoin duine sin.
The origin of that call, who made it, that was obviously a central part of the investigation, but it did not reveal tangible results in terms of identifying the caller. Can speculate that the killer had contacted Mary following the phone call, had kept her at some location overnight, and that the following day she was circulating in the Portlaoise area, and later on that day she was picked up by the killer again. Now, that's pure speculation.
Tá is ag na Gardaí go raibh an ólas a san ólaí á túil ó thaobh an counter a bhíonn san dún mar fór, de bhór an slíon a raibh siad an ann an corpa ceilt.
Well, then obviously people in the town were looking at each other and wondering, like, did somebody from within our own community do this? Because Portlaoise was such a small community at the time.
Dahrig an baile Portlaoise na bailte sa counter line agus na bailte I lár na tíre tar éis an achtar seo.
Bhí daoine eile ar iarraig ag an am mná eile. Bhí a lán I méal an phobal ó thaobh an Vanishing triangle.
I Marta nócha trí chuig ban tuarasóir ó nua áireach ana macaric ar ire I Gilvantáin. Agus sin chuig Marie Kilmartin ar ire I nulig nócha trí. Agus an anar nócha car chuig ban á túl ó Montach mílach I Meldacínan chuig sí ar ire I Portlaoise.
Is cinnte go raibh mothú ar le a tacht más marrá sa tréimhse seo mar eol ar na dúmhána sna Vanishing triangle.
Bhí daoine nervhíseach agus bhí daoine ag smíanamh an raibh ceangal idir an trúr maná a bhí ar easnamh, an raibh ceangal ann I lár na tíre.
Is tócha go raibh tuile éiris agus go lár imagla ag tacht an cín a más marrá, de réir mar a chuaigh marrá ar éirí nó de réir mar a hánas ar chorp.
An raibh sé slán sa bháilta dul a muith ar siúlóid, an raibh sé slán sa bháilta dul a muith ina éonar.
Ní dám go féile ceangal chuil díreach léana ar na dúmhairthe is just a Vanishing triangle agus na hatha a bhí atáliú sa sochaí. Ach is cinnte go raibh tioncar éigen ann I dtaobh na mrá breise a bhí a dul ar éirí sa chuíos go raibh tuile mrá a muitheann sin sa bubal bhí níos má ná splácha sacu. Smaoiníodh mar rointas na cásanna bhí mrá óga muith ag an old school agus mar sin de nó bhí siad a cánaí ina aonar. Freisin bhí mrá lócalacha I gceist agus beidir go denú targad as son. Stócha go raibh dúmhairtha sreatha amháin nó beirt ní lis an I gceist le cuidas na cásanna meastar gur beidh Larry Murphy a bhí chun cín I chás amháin.
Bhí fear eile Robert Howard faoi áras ag na Gardaí, de bhór gur Boss Wolf Hill dó I Conde Laois, ní raibh sé bhád ón áit inar chuaig Marie Kilmartin ar iarraig.
61-year-old Robert Lazarian Howard is a violent criminal with convictions spanning 5 decades across Ireland and Britain.
Bhí sé sin tar éis curranna uafásach a dhéanamh in san túisceart is sasanna agus bhí sé faoi áras sa cásanna eile timpeall na hÉireann freisin ó thaobh mná.
It can now be reported that Howard, cleared earlier this year of murdering missing Tyrone schoolgirl Arlene Arkinson, is serving a life sentence for murdering a 14-year-old girl in England.
Agus is tócha gur bhrú an conceap an dúnmhartha sreatha seo an sin an tuchtnú an ré ina réo níos sábháilte bhrú sé sin é sin illig ar leathbh.
There was a lot of rumour in the town as to who was involved, and I think people would have been more conscious of their dealings with those individuals at the time.
Bhí na Gardaí ag éirí ólas, bhíidir ag impí ar an pobal chun tacht chun cín, ach ní raibh mórán leidena in san cás seo, chuaigh gacrad ciúin.
So this is the inquest which took place on the 14th of June 1995.
Sinóla go Coroner a gas mar seo na fola má cé tamarú, céit worship bues, cuaigh worship bues agus go dé chúisí bues. Níl róla go Coroner in ceistin na maidir le centart na neamh centart na nebí.
The fact that they did have an open inquest in 1995, I question, because the person who murdered Marie could have sat in and listened to the evidence against him or her.
Ó hí bh Coroner tá siad san na géirí fil má cén fáil go daoine seo marú sa dó go dtí teastas buis ar fáil agus freigraí thuirt an teile.
Ní raibh sé go dtí 2007 nuair a raibh factas nua ar bhun agus ag an am sin thosnaigh Áine inín le Marie ag glabhairt leis na man.
It's 30 years since Marie's body's been found and 30 years since the funeral this June. But out of all the people who went to that funeral, I is someone who was 14 years of age, the only one who is searching for answers on her own. That's terribly lonely and sad. This is a very lonely and bleak place. Marie was just left here, just like rubbish. You know, when I talk about Marie here, I don't have much to say, and that's the sad thing about it. Because I was taken from her at a few days old. So they were, you know, I'm hearing things now in my 40s about my mother's life, and a life I should have been part of. I don't know if it was one person or more than one person that was involved in Marie's murder. I don't know what secrets they were trying to hide, but I know that the truth will come out one day.
In 1993, dimig Marie Kilmartin Erig gan tasc gan tóirisk. Sé bhí in dhéisisin fortach idir cóla tódere agus an mónteach míle ke gún de líise. Frihug a carp agus í curtha fi chelt in rain. Fiú le hachfaní ilen an árdaí agus iirechtaí ólas a áil an bobbal, níor cúisiach duine riamh maidir lena dún bharú.
Is beag a clishmid faoi an cás a Marie Kilmartin na léit na seo. A bhhain go ham tagan an cás sús ach tá na ceisna go léir fós ann.
I 2007 bhí cás Marie Kilmartin os córa na man a ríist. Ag an am seo bhí sé beagáinín difriúil mar bhí Áine tar éis tacht chun cín
In recent years, Marie's daughter Áine, having just discovered Marie was her mother, began a public campaign to help catch the killer, handing out leaflets in Portlaoise and beyond and setting up a website appealing for witnesses.
I sent an email to every politician in Ireland, and I met with a few politicians in the Dáil, and as a consequence of that, the NBCI took over the case, and that was headed up by Dominic Hayes.
Bhí sé ag labhairt leis na man ins na nuachtáin agus ag déanamh aglah maidir leis an cás.
I guess after a Harley blianta fadahain, bhín deacrat í éirid buint le cás mar sin. Bhín daoine nábhail beidir cibhneachar go dtí Harley, bí fine sin nábhail ar fáil níos mó beidir go siad marú na bocha hiúil agus nábhail fáil atú.
Is tócha go raibh na Gardaí faoi brú arís chun freagraí áileann san cás seo, déanú abhrenú ar.
The same people who were arrested in 94 were arrested in 2008 as well as the wife of the prime suspect.
Bhí na fear ins na dahadaí agus ins na seascadaí bhí an banan ís beagnach mar an ggéine leis an fearns na seascadaí chuma. Ceistú iad is stáisiú na Gardaí ins na Tullach Mór agus i Portlaoise agus scaoileadh saor iad. Níor cúisiú aon de na riamh maidir leis an cás seo.
The Garda press office released a statement saying that they are preparing a file to be sent to the DPP. Yet in 2017, when I sent a letter to the DPP, they have no record of ever receiving a file. So I have questioned the guards about this, and they say that they just didn't have enough information to send to the DPP.
Agus the glógus ar a stage, cás na corúla thur an tásaí na higla fa sin dhéanú. I guess cás cosla seo a Harley beidir fadahain, bín ceist na carfu ar Harley seo rá adahain le cás a thur. Agus beidir ag brethir na fíricí, beidir go nnéana dhearachtas ar gan tríal chun a ré mar go mu se neu éirealte beidir don sé a cúisií.
Áine has been a great catalyst in keeping this case alive.
Leabhar sí leis na man, rinne sí aláin aglah faoin cás, chuir sí ceistena ar na Gardaí, chuir sí féin in úl de cárde Marie.
And I know that Áine also has tried very hard to contact people who are people of interest from our point of view.
If they think that their information is insignificant, it may lead to justice. Just come forward to the Garda station or to Crime Stoppers. I would also like to appeal to the person or persons who were responsible for the death of such a loving and caring woman who I never got to know as my mother, to just come forward and have it in their heart to lessen their own burden.
Bhí sí a caint le Pat Doyle agus le daoine eile, bhí sí géirí freagraí áil.
She has done that in a very calm way, which must be extremely difficult.
I created this leaflet in 2006 in my final year of college to assess the demand for the foundation of a charity, because I felt the guards were not doing an adequate job at the time. And also just to tell a little of Marie and my story, and I left a contact detail and a post office account at the time, and I set up a website.
I remember the first time I met Áine, and I told her that I knew Marie and was able to talk about Marie to her. I think that kind of really struck a chord with Áine, that here was someone telling her what her mother was like, and she's someone that, you know, really is looking to find justice for her mother, a mother that she didn't know, and I think she feels that she needs to do something for Marie and Marie's memory.
I got a lot of emails from people all over Ireland, which really helped me to grieve for Marie. It was really touching at the time. It was really lovely. I'm very appreciative to this day for everyone who bothered to email me. It's been 20 years since I started looking into Marie's case, and besides the 3 arrests in 2008, there has absolutely been no progress whatsoever. The guards took a statement in 2021 from a woman who one guard had visited her in her home place back in 93-94, and she had critical information, yet the guards didn't come to make a statement. It has been very frustrating. It's like getting a wall in my face all the time, but it's actually just making me more determined to find the answers.
Níl éon duine gafa ag na Gardaí ó 2008 maidir le cás Marie Kilmartin. Cé go bhfuil a hinaín Áine a déanamh a díthal le fadam lá teachtar an té a rinne an cair. Ach tá mathú láidir fósán go bhfuil ólas sa cheantar maidir le tragóid Marie Kilmartin.
Tá tuairim má ag na Gardaí agus na Blachtarí gur duine áitiúil a mhairigh Marie.
In looking at any murder investigation, obviously, it is a factually accurate that most people, unfortunate victims, are killed by somebody that they knew. In the case of Marie's case, of course, that would be a very strong possibility. The nature of the person herself, it is very likely that it was someone that knew her.
Tá isacó Beidir gur duine áitiúil a bhí ann de bhar an ólas ar fad a raibh an duine seo. Bhí siad an ann carpa cheilt, bhí iver Marie acu, bhí siad in san láthair ina raibh Marie ag cónaí agus ag gobar.
I'm pretty sure that it is either 1, 2 or 3 individuals still living in Portlaoise who, if they care to open their mouths, could absolutely tell us to a very high degree of certainty what happened to Marie.
Tá sean saoin go méid na Gardaí an ann an cás seo a tharú.
I think there are people in Portlaoise town who have answers, and for whatever reason they might be protecting someone who's alive or dead.
Beidir gur rinn an dún mar fór an rún le duine eile. Beidir go raibh si tar éis rud éigin a rá le duine eile ach tá na freagraí ann. Níl se riamhrá déanaach don ólas sin chun tacht chun cín, uaireanta nuair atá daoine ag dul in os go háirithe dún mar fórí nuair a bhfuil siad ag dul in os, bíonn siad ag éirí labhairt, bíonn siad ag éirí labhairt Beidir ar an labba bhás. Tá na freagraí an sin agus tá na Gardaí ag éirí an chás seo a gúna.
Gan leid ar bith i teacht gon solas le fadam lá, tá an cás seo sáinithe, gan dul chun cín, agus tá rion fácha ag dún bharú bharú ar gachtainna ar raibh ceangal acu leis an scéal.
This case has stayed with me from the day I left Portlaoise. Actually, it stayed with me from the day that I saw the remains in the bog in Portarlington. And at every stage in my career, it has remained with me.
Bóá le pobl Portlaoise, deire leis an cás ó fásach, tabáisteach, tragódach a eicáil.
Capan héin go bhfuil sean saoin go fóil go méid na freagraí ag clán Marie Kilmartin. Capan go mo chóir go méid na freagraí sin ag Áine. Bhrálinn dá mar rud é go raibh na Gardaí in ann an cás seo a gúna agus na freagraí a oil.
Difficulty is, of course, time marches on, and people who were suspects then may no longer be with us or not. So that makes it extremely difficult. But the case itself cries out for justice. Yeah, it cries out for answers. I sincerely hope, for Áine's sake, that there will be a conclusion that will be suitable and satisfactory to her. And that would be my sincerest wish as we conclude this many, many years later.
Doing things that people just generally do. They go shopping with their mother. I just didn't have that. I didn't have those shared things that